What if I told you that Florida has exploded to an 11.2% Republican voter registration advantage, making it more red than Texas? That the Democrat Party is now in third place behind independents in an entire American state, and that analysts are projecting Pennsylvania will flip to a Republican registration lead within months for the first time in the state's history. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. The legacy media does not want you to see what I am about to show you. They are not ignoring this story because it is unimportant. They are ignoring it because it is the most important political story in America, and it destroys every narrative they have been selling you for years. Because underneath all of the noise, underneath the cable news shouting and the pundit predictions and the cherry-picked polls designed to shape your opinion rather than reflect reality, there is a data story unfolding in government offices in every state across this country that is absolutely devastating for the Democrat Party. This story is not written in opinion polls. It is written in voter registration rolls, hard numbers, legal declarations, real people walking into real offices and making real decisions about which party they belong to. And the decisions they are making by the millions are all going in the same direction, away from the Democrats, toward the Republicans, at a pace that is accelerating every single month. If you believe that voter registration data is more honest than any media poll, and that what is happening to the Democrat Party right now represents the most significant political realignment in modern American history, smash that like button right now. Every click helps us get these numbers in front of Americans who deserve to know the truth. Because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why prominent, lifelong Democrats are publicly defecting from their party with devastating explanations that reveal how broken the left has become, what the voter registration numbers look like across every key battleground state, and why they are the single best predictor of what is going to happen in November. Why millions of Americans are physically relocating from blue states to red states, and what that mass migration is going to cost Democrats in the next reapportionment. And what all of this means for whether 2026 could produce something that has only happened 3 times in the last 100 years. Now, let me start with who is leaving the Democrat Party, because the names and the reasons tell you everything about the state of the American left. Pennsylvania Supreme Court Justice David Wecht just announced that he is leaving the Democrat Party, a sitting justice on one of the most powerful state courts in the country, a man who built his entire professional life within the Democrat establishment. He looked at his party and said he is done. His reason is specific and it is damning. He cited the growing antisemitism within the party's mainstream. He pointed directly to Maine's likely Democrat Senate nominee Graham Plattner, who was revealed last October to have a Nazi symbol tattooed on his body. Not a vaguely offensive image, a Nazi tattoo on a Senate nominee. And the party's response was not to disqualify him or condemn him or distance themselves in any meaningful way. The response was to minimize it, to make excuses, to quietly hope it would go away. Wecht said the party has fundamentally changed from the one he once knew and represented. He did not say it was going through a rough patch. He said it has fundamentally changed, and he walked out the door. Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz followed him. One of the most famous legal minds in American history, a lifelong Democrat, has officially registered as a Republican. He published an explanation in the Wall Street Journal that echoed the exact same words Ronald Reagan used decades ago. I did not leave the party left me. Dershowitz said his political identity was rooted in the Kennedy and Clinton era, a party that championed due process, free speech, and civil liberties, a party that believed in the open exchange of ideas and the protection of individual rights. He says that party no longer exists. It has been replaced by something he does not recognize. A radical machine that suppresses speech, weaponizes the legal system, and has embraced what he calls virulent anti-Semitism. He cited polling showing 70% of Democrats now prefer the Palestinian side over democratic Israel. For Dershowitz, that was the final straw. Now here is where the individual stories become a pattern that should terrify the Democrat establishment. Because Wecht and Dershowitz are not anomalies. They are data points in a ratio that is mathematically devastating. For every 1 Republican who switches to the Democrat Party, 4 Democrats switch to the Republicans. 4 to 1. That is not a trend, that is a hemorrhage. Every time the Democrats gain 1 voter through conversion, they lose 4. The net loss on every exchange is 3. Multiply that across hundreds of thousands of party switches happening every year across 50 states, and you are looking at a party that is not just shrinking, it is evaporating. And the 4-to-1 defection ratio is happening alongside something even more dramatic: the physical mass migration of blue state residents to red states. People are not just changing their party registration, they are changing their address. They are loading up moving trucks and leaving New York and California and Illinois for Texas and Florida and Tennessee and the Carolinas. The New York Post reported that New York City alone may lose $12 billion in GDP from businesses fleeing to escape crushing wealth and business taxes. $12 billion. That is not a minor adjustment. That is an economic catastrophe for the city and the state. And those businesses are taking their employees, their tax revenue, their economic activity, and their voter registrations with them. That is why Texas and Florida and Tennessee are booming. They are absorbing the productive class that Democrat governance has driven out. And that is why New York and California are teetering on the edge of fiscal collapse. They are losing the very people whose labor and innovation created the wealth that funded their programs. When the 2030 census triggers the next reapportionment, blue states are projected to lose between 12 and 16 electoral votes and congressional seats. Those seats do not vanish. They transfer to red states. The political map of America is being physically redrawn by the feet of millions of people who tried the Democrat experiment and are running in the opposite direction. Now let me show you the voter registration data, because this is where the story goes from alarming to historic. Voter registration trends are the single most accurate predictive indicator for election results. More accurate than polls, more accurate than pundit analysis, more accurate than fundraising numbers or enthusiasm metrics or rally attendance. Because voter registration is not an opinion, it is a legal act. It is a commitment documented in a government office. And when millions of those commitments are all moving in the same direction simultaneously, the elections that follow are not hard to predict. Florida first, because Florida is the compass that tells you where the rest of the map is heading. Since 1952, Florida has functioned as a bellwether for Pennsylvania and Michigan. Wherever Florida goes, those states follow. The correlation has held across 7 decades of elections. It held in the Obama years, it held in the Trump years. It is one of the most reliable predictive relationships in all of American political science. And Florida right now is running to the right at a pace that has no modern precedent. In November 2024, Republicans held a 7.8% voter registration advantage. 16 months later, that advantage has surged to 11.2%, 3.4% in 16 months. Florida is now more Republican by voter registration than the state of Texas. Think about what that means. The state that Barack Obama won twice. The state that was a legitimate toss-up as recently as 2018. The state where Democrats spent hundreds of millions of dollars every single cycle because they believed it was competitive. That state has now passed the most famous Republican stronghold in America in voter registration dominance. Florida has 67 counties. Only 8 still have a Democrat registration majority. 59 out of 67 are Republican. The Democrat footprint has been reduced to a handful of urban pockets, while the rest of the state has turned deep, structural, permanent red. And because of the bellwether relationship, what is happening in Florida is a preview of what is coming to the Midwest. The same working class realignment, the same economic frustrations, the same cultural rejection of radical progressive ideology. Florida is further down the road, but Pennsylvania and Michigan are on the same road heading in the same direction. Now Iowa, because Iowa unlocks the mystery of a state we otherwise cannot measure. Iowa matters because it is the bellwether for Wisconsin. And Wisconsin is critical because Wisconsin does not publish voter registration data by party. We cannot directly see the partisan shift happening in Wisconsin through registration rolls, but we can see it through Iowa because the two states move together politically the same way Florida moves with Pennsylvania. In 2024, Iowa went hard right for Trump by double digits. Every single county shifted right, all 99, and the move has continued since. The Republican advantage has grown from 10.3% to 11.1%. Democrats have lost over 11,000 active registrations in 16 months. And here is the number that no one in the mainstream media will report. The Democrat Party now trails independent voters in all 4 of Iowa's congressional districts. The Democrats are in 3rd place, not 2nd, 3rd, behind Republicans, behind independents, in an entire state that Barack Obama won twice. 3rd place. That is not a party going through a rough cycle. That is a party ceasing to be a competitive political force in an entire state. And because Iowa is the bellwether for Wisconsin, this tells us that the same disintegration is happening beneath the surface in Wisconsin, even though we cannot see it directly in the registration data. Now, Pennsylvania, the keystone of every presidential election strategy for both parties, the state that no Republican has won the White House without since the modern era began. In November 2024, Democrats held a 3.1% voter registration advantage. Today, it is 2.1%, a full point gone in 16 months. Among active voters, the gap is even smaller. Democrats have gone from a 1.6% advantage to just 0.7%. Less than a single point separates the parties among the people who actually show up and vote. The 2 counties that predict Pennsylvania's outcome are Erie and Northampton. He who wins Erie and Northampton almost always wins the state. Both counties have been trending right for months, consistently, without interruption. The same realignment that has already transformed Florida and Iowa is playing out in real time in the 2 most important counties in the most important state on the map. Analysts who track these numbers month to month are now projecting that Pennsylvania will flip to a Republican voter registration lead within months. Not years, not next cycle, months. When it flips, and at this rate it is a question of when, not if, it will be one of the most consequential political shifts in modern American history. North Carolina has already flipped. For the first time ever, Republicans lead in voter registration. Democrats held a 1.3% advantage in November 2024. Today, Republicans lead by 0.1%. First time in the history of the state. Arizona continues to widen. The Republican advantage has grown from 6.8% to 7.4%. The state is accelerating away from Democrats every month. Nevada has flipped. Democrats held a 0.5% advantage. Today, Republicans lead by 0.3%. Another Western firewall state breached and fallen. 6 battleground states. Florida surging, Iowa surging, Pennsylvania collapsing for Democrats. North Carolina flipped, Arizona widening, Nevada flipped. All 6 moving right. Not a single exception. Not one state where Democrats are gaining ground. 6 for 6. All the same direction, all at the same time. This is not a cycle. Cycle's correct. This is a realignment. Realignments are permanent. Now let me bring all of this together and explain why it matters for November. Because the convergence of defections, migration, registration data, fundraising advantage, and redistricting is creating conditions that could produce something genuinely historic. Midterm elections almost always destroy the party in power. That is the rule. The president's party gets hammered. In 100 years of American politics, there have been only 3 exceptions where the president's party did not lose significant seats. 3 times in a century. But look at the conditions building for 2026. Voter registration data is overwhelmingly favorable for Republicans across every battleground state. The defection ratio is 4-1 in the GOP's favor. The RNC holds over $123 million cash on hand with 0 debt, while the DNC has $14 million and $17 million in debt. Redistricting across 7 states could hand Republicans up to 15 additional House seats before a single vote is cast. The generic congressional ballot has swung dramatically toward Republicans. Mass migration out of blue states is stripping Democrats of their population base. And the most prominent figures in the Democrat intellectual establishment are publicly walking out the door and explaining to the world exactly why. Those are not the conditions of a normal midterm. Those are the conditions that could produce the 4th exception in 100 years. A midterm where the president's party does not lose seats but gains them. A midterm where history is not just defied but rewritten. Could it happen? The voter registration data says yes. The defection ratio says yes. The fundraising numbers say yes. The redistricting maps say yes. The migration data says yes. Every single predictive indicator is aligned. all pointing in the same direction, all at the same time. Nothing is guaranteed. Midterms are unpredictable. Events intervene, mistakes happen. But the structural foundation being laid right now is the strongest any party in power has ever had heading into a midterm in modern American political history. And the Democrat Party has no answer. No strategy to reverse the registrations, no plan to stop the defections, no solution for the migration draining their states, no message that resonates with the working class voters who are leaving them by the millions. They have nothing but the same failing formula delivered by the same discredited messengers to an audience that shrinks every single month. More identity politics, more open borders, more attacks on free speech, more radical ideology in classrooms, more prosecution of political opponents, more anti-Semitism, more of everything that is driving their own people into the arms of the Republican Party at a 4-to-1 ratio. The party of Kennedy is gone. The party of Clinton is gone. What remains is an unrecognizable ideological machine that has alienated its own most loyal members, driven its own voters to re-register, and created conditions so hostile to normal American life that millions of families have literally packed up and moved to different states to escape. The numbers do not lie. The registrations do not lie. The defections do not lie. The migration patterns do not lie. And what they are all saying in perfect unison from every state and every data set is that the Democrat Party is not experiencing a setback. It is experiencing a structural collapse, the kind that does not reverse, the kind that reshapes the political map for a generation. The 2030 reapportionment will confirm it. The 2026 midterms will demonstrate it. And the voter registration data we are tracking right now will have predicted it months before a single ballot was cast. The future of American politics is being decided right now. Not on cable news, not in press conferences, in voter registration offices in Tallahassee and Des Moines and Philadelphia and Raleigh and Phoenix and Las Vegas. One form at a time, one decision at a time, one American at a time, all walking in the same direction, away from the Democrats toward the Republicans, and they are never coming back. Don't stop here. The voter registration data updates every month, and the trends are accelerating faster than anyone predicted. Click on the next video and join us as we continue to track the most significant political realignment in a generation and every development heading into the most consequential midterm election of our lifetime.